Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Early Career Academic. This is the second video in a research series of videos on my channel here. In the first video, I talk about discovering your research themes, thinking about your research in terms of buckets or themes. And in this video, we're talking about managing your research pipeline. If you're interested in this series and this type of content on this channel, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Also, I mention a couple of resources in this video and Also, I have created a companion blog post to this video with a bunch of links to resources that I mention, as well as some links to other academics' systems for managing the research pipelines. I know I have been inspired by these approaches, although their circumstances are very different from my own, and I'm going to talk about that in today's video as well. So let's get into it. First, what is a research pipeline? Should you have a research pipeline? Why should you have a research pipeline, and how should you manage it? A research pipeline is essentially a system you set up to manage your projects. And this, for us academics, means managing our academic projects. Now, for me, I expand this to include other kinds of projects too. So it might include things like my community engagement work or other academic related projects that I pursue. And you'll see that in this video. I'll show you all the projects that I currently have in my pipeline. But the idea is to find a way to make sure that you are making some progress on each of these projects that you have over the course of however long you want to manage these projects. The reason that I suggest you have a system for managing these projects is because if you are not thinking about it strategically, if you're not making time for it, even in roles like mine, which are not research focused, then you're not going to make any progress, and these ideas are going to be clogged up in your pipeline for years and years. And I know I've been there personally. And that leads me to my next sort of consideration, and that is that while a lot of advice about managing your research pipeline is related to tenure track roles with heavy research demands, not all of us are there, and especially more and more of us in academia have these alternate roles. And so what I want to do is imagine a way for you to manage your projects for those of us who have heavy teaching loads, are not in tenure track positions, who are researching in a kind of hybrid academic or industry nonprofit context, but just a simple, streamlined way of managing projects that helps you make incremental progress, that lets you know where you are on each of them as you tackle them in whatever order you decided to tackle them. So that is what I'm going to show you in this video, is how I approach this as someone with limited time. And finally, I want to talk about the kind of why behind it all. Definitely, we each have to come to a point, if we're not in a tenure track position, or even if we are for that matter, but do we want to pursue the research we're pursuing, and why? And I think, especially in a role where you have limited time, whether that's because of family obligations or because you have a heavy teaching load, or you are doing a kind of hybrid academic industry type of role, it really helps if we think strategically about our long-term research goals, starting with those themes that I talked about in the first video, and then coming here to create a system for managing the projects that are part of those themes you identified. And so having a system, however simple, however streamlined, or however complex, absolutely take a look at the links in my blog for other ways of going about this, but consider how you want to tackle these projects and how you're going to help yourself do that. And that's what this video is all about. So I will show you now how I manage my projects personally. I'd love to know in the comments how you manage yours, or if you have specific roadblocks you're experiencing to managing your research pipeline, and if so, what are they? I'll see you back here. So now I'm going to show you how I organize my research pipeline. Once I have figured out what my research themes are, I list out all of the projects that I have going on for that specific research theme. Now, these don't encapsulate every single thing I've ever done for this research area. That goes on my CV and on my website. But for the purposes of keeping track of what I'm working on now and what I should be working on in the future, I use this Google Sheet. Now, there are way more sophisticated project management tools that you can use. There's a bunch of academics who use Trello, for example, or Notion. Some use other programs like Asana. Some even go kind of more analog. They use Kanban boards and whiteboards and things with sticky notes to track like what stage their project's at. For me personally, I found those kinds of systems either too complex, didn't want to learn them, or they were too limited. Some of those kind of, especially the whiteboard options for me, assume that every project has the same exact trajectory, but for me, that's not the case. Not all my projects start with a conference presentation and move through similar steps to a publication. In some cases, I'm asked by a colleague to contribute a chapter to a collection. There's no conference step in that. And so, some of those steps seem kind of just not related to some of the projects that I do. And so I wanted to create a system that was flexible enough to accommodate the kinds of projects I do, but at the same time organized. So what I have here is a simple spreadsheet with 2 columns, project on the left and status on the right. And underneath project, I have grouped these projects based on the research area that they apply to. So my 3 research areas, if you watched my video on research themes, are digital literary culture, digital composition, and community engagement. Underneath these research theme headers, I have a list of projects related to that research theme. So for example, under digital literary culture, I am currently working on a book proposal. I actually have a book proposal. I'm going to be meeting with an academic editor soon to pitch it to them. I am leading a NEMLA seminar coming up, and so I have to write a paper for that, but also I have to organize the panel. I have a talk at my Center for Humanities Research coming up, so I have to prepare that talk. And I have an NEH Summer Fellowship Award that I'm waiting to hear about. And these are all the things I have going on currently that relate to this topic of digital literary culture. I could also add, for example, that I'm teaching a digital literary culture class this semester, so that could be added, like if that's something that you're thinking about in terms of pulling together all your various efforts. If I was working on a committee or other sort of service related to this, I would probably put it in here as well. Under digital composition, I have a reading group, for example, that I organize. And so I put that in here because it is an effort on my part that I want to keep track of. And there's to-do items that I need to do for this. There's some other articles I want to finish up, some notes I have to process. So that's all under this for this particular research theme. And then community engagement, I have some writing, some conferences. I also was recently awarded the position of faculty associate for the Center of Teaching and Learning to create materials for other faculty that want to teach community engaged classes. So there are things I'm going to need to do for that. So I want to make sure I capture it here in my project list. And then the final section under project that I have, which is not a research area, is what I call public facing. These are just my personal website and my Mason, my institution website that I need to update every so often. So I put them on here just to remind myself to go back and check, like if I've moved the needle on some of these things, then these things need to be updated to reflect that. I could also, for example, put my CV down here, and that would remind me to update it there too. So that's might be something that I add here, but it's just a nice little reminder that I have those things and I should be updating them on a regular basis. So in the status column is where I put the current status of each of these projects. So you can see that I'm, going to pitch this to an editor, but the status is I'm waiting to set up a meeting with him. I need to email the participants of this panel, and I need to write the paper, I need to prepare the talk, and so on and so forth. So that just tells me where I'm at. And I can't tell you what a revelation it was for me to just have this simple column telling myself where I am at for a specific project. Because what I used to do is I would go, oh yeah, there's that talk coming up. Wait, do I have notes for that? I just can't keep it all in my head. So I can't impress upon you enough like whatever system you use, please have a way in which you can glance at it and know exactly where you left off. So you don't have to think about it over and over and over again as you return to these things. Like this is a lot of projects. I can't work on them all at once. I need to come back to them at different points in the year, different years in my cycle, for my pipeline to keep moving. And so, knowing what the status was the last time I looked at it is just a hugely helpful thing so that I can just dive right back in. So this is the way that I track my current projects, the way that I manage my pipeline. Thanks for watching this video. Stay tuned and subscribe if you want to see the next video in this series, which is organizing your digital files for research specifically. Thanks again, and please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not already, and stay tuned for some more academic and productivity content on this channel.